Thank you for coming across this video. This is if you like this video and it helps you, subscribe to my channel, Look at the Bible Through the Eyes of a Sinner, and like me on Facebook and Look at the Bible Through the Eyes of a Sinner. This is a study on dealing with difficult people, people persecuting you, people trying to do you dirty. How do you handle them? People despitefully using you and talking down on you and belittling you. How are you supposed to react? So I prayed about it, and I wanted to do a study on this, and I hope it'll help you and you'll like it. It's called Don't Trip. Just go around it, over it, or go right through it. Romans 14:13 says, "Let us not therefore judge one another any more, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way." This is a study on how to deal with difficult people. The title explains it all. Don't trip, as in let them make you fall. But don't trip, as in getting all worked up and putting yourself on the same level as the one persecuting you. Then you can go around it by avoiding the situation, or go over it by being the bigger person and using that stumbling block as a stepping stone to getting to your destination. Lastly, you can just go right through it. Put on the full armor of God so you can guard yourselves from the darts of the devil, and in this case, the darts of other people, and just run through it till the end. But if you notice in the verse above, it speaks of a stumbling block. What exactly is a stumbling block? A stumbling block is something a person puts in front of someone else that causes them to fall. You look at Revelations 2:14, it's speaking to the churches that had the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, and it made them fall by eating unclean things, and they committed fornication. A stumbling block is a very bad thing. It's so easy to cast a stumbling block in someone's way and cause them to fall. It can destroy people's lives, and they will make decisions that they wouldn't normally make, all because of that one stumbling block. Stumbling blocks ruin lives, families, relationships, and most serious consequence of a stumbling block is it ruins one's relationship with Christ. It destroys their faith. So what should we consider a stumbling block? People tempting you with things you shouldn't do. Notice I didn't say the devil, I said people. Then people pressuring you to do more and more and more to live up to a standard. Then you break under the pressure of someone's convictions being pushed on you. Then you have negative people, haters, persecutors, a miserable person that wants your company. You know the saying, misery loves company. Disrespectful people. Who would have thought a stumbling block in someone's life could be certain people that come in one's life to persecute them, to disrespect, ridicule, to betray, and even scoff at them? To start this study, we must examine ourselves to make sure we aren't the reason we are getting treated the way we are by other people. Let's use two examples of looking in the mirror. Genesis 38, you have Judah. He had 3 sons. 2 of them died, and he had one more who wasn't old enough to produce children. He had a daughter-in-law named Tamar. She was wanting a baby, and as time went on, as she was waiting patiently on the youngest son to grow up, she could have a child by him, but that never happened. So she dressed up like a prostitute and went out and saw Judah, her father-in-law. He didn't recognize her, and he slept with her. He gave her a signet, a bracelet, and a staff. He found out later on that she was pregnant and thought she was whoring around, so he commanded her to be brought so she could be burnt. He then saw the things he gave her and realized that she was the prostitute, and that he was the one that slept with her and got her pregnant. But he was so quick to judge her and persecute her and even try to kill her. And he was the one who did the dirt. So of course he lets her go, and she was no more. And he said that she was more righteous than he was, since he never did give her his youngest son as a husband. Then you have David in 2 Samuel 12. Nathan the prophet was speaking to David about an incident that happened, and David was all fired up and he wanted to kill the one who committed the crime. Then Nathan told David he was talking about him. So David repented and realized he sinned and made it right with the Lord. But there was a consequence for his actions that he did, because this was speaking of him killing Uriah and taking Bathsheba. And the consequence was that his baby had to die. But David examined himself and realized his faults. So when dealing with a stumbling block, we must first examine ourselves to make sure we are right before we even try to attempt to resolve a conflict with someone else. We must absolutely make sure that we ourselves aren't a stumbling block to anyone else, because maybe people are reacting to us because we ourselves are a stumbling block to them. We must know that we are in perilous times because we have people who are lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. We are surrounded by these types of people every day in our lives. We work with these people. We pass them at the stores. We sit next to them in restaurants. We even go to church with them. We could be married to them and even related to them. So knowing that we're surrounded by them, how do we deal with them? The only way to do this is to go through the Bible to see what the best way is to deal with these stumbling blocks in our lives. You first look at Joseph in Genesis 50. His brothers were jealous of him and they sold him into slavery. His own family did this now. But with God being who he is, it doesn't matter who betrays you, because greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. Joseph suffered. Oh, believe me, he suffered. But he ended up being a governor of Egypt and saving his own family from hunger. The ones who betrayed him, he ended up saving. He told them they thought to do evil against him, but God meant it for good. So when people are persecuting you and trying to bring you down, God will use that situation and flip the script and use it for good. You may even save the life of the one persecuting you, just as Joseph saved his brothers' lives from the famine after the fact that they sold him into slavery. Joseph just went through the stumbling block with the full armor of God. David was cursed by all kinds of people. He had it hard. Yes, some stuff he brought on his own. But other stuff just kept on coming after him. In 1 Samuel 18, Saul was after David. He wanted to kill David. He tried several times to kill David, and David just stayed away from him. He didn't go near him. He didn't even do anything to Saul. Saul was just jealous of him, and he was out for blood. So David just kept on avoiding him. So depending on the stumbling block, sometimes we just need to go around it. But then later on in David's life, when David's son revolted against him, he did the same thing as he did with Saul and just fled. But as he was going, the man started throwing stones at David, cursing him. He could have shut him up and killed him, but he didn't. He said the Lord will look on his affliction and acquit him for good for the cursing. So David just let the guy curse him, because the Lord, seeing him being persecuted, the Lord would reward him good for his persecutions. David went around some of the stumbling blocks, but then with this guy he went above it and endured the persecution and curses from others. Some folks just aren't going to get along. We all are going to have a disagreement at one point in our lives. So for some more advice on dealing with people, let's look at some of the things King Solomon wrote. This was the wisest man that lived. So who needs a counselor and who needs to go to therapy when we have the living God dwelling inside of us and have the Bible for our roadmap? This is a comparison between the wise and the foolish. After reading this, the Holy Ghost himself will manifest himself in you and cut you at the heart, but most importantly, he will guide you by your spirit when it comes to dealing with a stumbling block. So dealing with difficult people according to Proverbs. I'll just paraphrase a lot of it, but Proverbs 9. If we reprove a scorner, he will hate us, but if we rebuke the wise, he will love us. So if someone is scorning you and you try to check them and they hate you, then they are not wise. But if someone wise offends you and you say something, they will be humble and ask for forgiveness, and you won't have that issue come up again in the future. A foolish woman is simple and knows nothing. A foolish woman is a troublemaker who is persecuting you. She calls the passengers that go by her. She stirs up stuff and tempts them. They get caught up and go in with her, not knowing the dead and hell. The dead are there, and her guests are in the depths of hell. So even though this woman was tempting people to lie with her, but people tempt us to strive with them, to fuss. So just like the foolish woman tempted people, you need to avoid this person and not get sucked into the strife, because it will destroy you as it destroyed the people that went into the house with the foolish woman. So don't trip. Proverbs 11, if we're righteous, we are delivered from trouble, and the wicked are put in the place of the righteous person that has been delivered. A hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor, but through the knowledge shall the just be delivered. He that is void of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his peace. A merciful man doth good to his own soul, but he that is cruel troubleth his own flesh. Those who are of a froward heart are abomination to the Lord, but such are upright in their way are his delight. From seeing this, with some comparing of righteous people and troublemakers, we sometimes need to go above the stumbling block and not put ourselves on the same level. Proverbs 15, a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. A tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools pour out foolishness. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of the foolish doth not so. Correction is grievous to him that forsake the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. A scorner loveth not one that reproveth him, neither will he go unto the wise. A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken. A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife. Folly is joy to him that is destitute of wisdom, but a man of understanding walketh uprightly. The heart of the righteous studieth to answer, but the mouth of the wicked poureth out evil things. He that refuseth instruction despiseth his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, but before honor is humility. Boy, this is a lot to live by right here. We must once again go above the stumbling block and not trip. Being humble, you will receive honor in the end, but we must be low to be esteemed by the Lord. So from people being humiliated by people, in the end you will have honor, then the people who humiliated you will wear their shame. Some random things from Solomon's wisdom in the book of Proverbs. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. A merry heart doth good like medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. A prudent man foreseeth evil, and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. So from seeing these things, if we walk in the light, and seek first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, then everything else will be added to us. Even peace from our enemies, peace from people trying to persecute you, because you are so caught up into seeking Christ, the other things won't even bother you. A merry heart, when you are seeking Christ, you will have a merry heart, and it will heal others, even your enemies. Those with the broken spirits are decaying. People think diseases kill and people kill, but the silent killer is that sorrowful spirit, because it's drying you up. But the sad thing is, the ones with the sorrowful spirit can put that spirit on someone else and make them sorrowful. But that merry heart, boy, that can rub off on people too. Then being prudent and foreseeing evil before you come upon it and avoiding it. Now that we are done with the words of Solomon, let's look at some other verses in the Bible to see how to deal with stumbling blocks. James tells us, where there's envying and strife, there's confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. The fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. So when there are people disrespecting you and you have envying and strife, it's not from above. But if we are seeking Christ, then we would have the wisdom that is from above, which is peaceable and gentle, with no hypocrisy, and not being partial with people, having picks, looking down on people. Timothy tells us a servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle unto all men. Paul said, we know all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. He also goes on to tell us to bless those that persecute us, but be of the same mind toward one another. Recompense no man evil for evil, avenge not ourselves, but give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. If your enemies hunger, feed them. If these thirsty, give them some drink. In so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Hebrews tells us to follow peace with all men and holiness. Without such no man shall see the Lord. Now this just cut me hard. I'm having to get some towels from bleeding from its cut. We know all things work together for good, even when we are persecuted. We are to bless those who persecute us. Now this is tough, but when you have charity, it overcomes and outlasts all. When you bless those who persecute you, if they have a heart that's not cold as ice, then it will do something to them. It will change them, and they will feel guilt for treating you the way they treated you. Finally, I know this is long, but this is the last thing. Let's see what Jesus himself said, then the cure for the entire situation. Jesus said, "Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Jesus told us to love our enemies, bless those that curse us, pray for those who despitefully use you. He tells us to be perfect as our Father which is in heaven is perfect. He tells us if our brother trespass against us to go tell him his fault. If he hears you, then you've gained a brother. If he won't hear you, then take 2 or 3 witnesses with you. If he still won't hear you, take it to the church. And if he won't hear you after that, let him be as a heathen. Basically, separate yourself from him. You've tried to make things right between both of you, and the next thing is just dust your shoes off, and if they won't accept you and make a reconciliation, just go on. But the cure, there are 3 things that we must do in our situations dealing with a stumbling block. First, we must seek Christ. When David was distressed in 1 Samuel 36, he encouraged himself in the Lord. So when you're persecuted, seek Christ and encourage yourself in Him. Pray. John 16:23, whatever you ask in the Father in the name of Jesus, He'll give it to you, even if you're praying for peace with your enemies. And respect. Luke 6:31, as you would do to that man should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. Respect. Something simple, yet people are so hard-headed they don't do it. Treat people how you want to be treated. If you're going to complain and be negative towards someone, you better expect that it'll come back to you. If you don't want to hear people complain, then don't complain to them. If you don't want to be hated by people, then don't hate other people. If people would just seek Christ and live for Him, then strife, disrespect, and envy, all that wouldn't even be an issue. See, Christ is a cure for everything, even when people are trying to persecute you and bring you down. And that is that. And I hope you like it and it helps you.